let's talk about chapel length veils. So this is like the bride who wanted a cathedral veil, but feels like the cathedral veil is a little too much for her. She's maybe a little more minimalistic. Maybe she has a slightly smaller train to her dress and she doesn't want to go totally crazy. Chapel length veils are really, I've just seen a huge increase in brides wearing them in the past year. It's dragging on the ground and typically for about a couple feet, 1 to 2 feet. They're normally somewhere around 9 inches in length.
Okay, so after chapel, we have
cathedral. I love cathedral length veils. This is the one that you knew about. It's the one that most people are familiar with. And it's the long veil. It's going for the whole shebang. It also has that elongating effect that fingertip length veils have. It's definitely one of the more popular.
Statement. I mean, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's long.
Absolutely. The last one, this is the one that all the celebrities wear. So like, for example, you were mentioning Hailey Bieber, Kim Kardashian. Those were not actually, from photos that I'm seeing, they're not traditional cathedral. They're actually considered a monarch veil. So monarch or royal length veils is the longest that you can go. And that's really making a statement, going super long.
And that's where you have, usually in the royal weddings, you see like little boys or children like carrying almost the veil behind the bride sometimes.
Absolutely. That's their role to help make sure that you're managing moving the veil from one place to another. I still recommend having a dedicated bridesmaid or somebody, even if you have a cathedral length veil,